Today, we're going to learn a lot more about what clerks actually do and how they keep the city running. I am your host, Lavetta Jenkins. Today, I'm talking to Mr. Richard Vincent Hill, who is the Clerk of Courts for the Youngstown Municipal Court. Welcome, Mr. Hill. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
It's going to be fun. You've got a very interesting job that I never even really thought about until I saw you running and then you got elected. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I'm like, let me figure out exactly what clerks do. So before we get into clerking and what you do and all that kind of stuff, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Richard Vincent Hill. I am the City of Youngstown Clerk of Court. I was elected in November in 2023. I had been working in the Clerk of Courts Office for 23 years prior to being elected. A lifelong resident of the City of Youngstown, proud father of one. I'm a graduate, 1994 graduate of Cardinal Mooney High School. I'm a 1999 graduate of Youngstown State University and a 2004 graduate of the University of Akron with a master's degree in public administration. While at Youngstown State, I was the captain of the tennis team, two-time all-conference. I did go back and coach at Youngstown State. I was assistant coach and won 4 Horizon League championships. I do own an insurance brokerage, insurance and financial services brokerage, Prism Insurance, LLC.
So you mentioned that you were, kind of raised in the city and you came up in the city, got all your education here, except for the master's, which was literally right across the way in LeBron territory.
Yes.
And you were able to come back here and be a public servant. You mentioned getting into working with the clerk of courts fairly young because you've been there for 23 years. How did you start and where did you start working in the clerk of courts?
Well, my first job out of college, I was working at the corporate headquarters for Progressive Insurance in Cleveland, and I was traveling back and forth. I actually never left Youngstown, even when I got my master's degree in public administration. I was still living in Youngstown, working in the clerk of courts, and just commuting. It was even before really online school. That tells you how long ago it was. But when I was working at Progressive, Sarah Brown Clark had gotten elected, and she was one of my college professors, was a good friend of the family, grew up with my mother, and she was asking me what I was doing, and I told her I was working at Progressive in Cleveland, and I did have aspirations to go back to school, whether it was law school or graduate school. I didn't really know which one, so I actually took the GMAT and LSAT, and she offered me the job because as a single father, she said, it's not really safe for you to be commuting every day. And, the winters were still really bad in Cleveland at the time. So I did, I took the job and opened up a lot of opportunities for me. Everything that I said in my introduction, I probably wouldn't have been able to do unless I came back and worked in the city of Youngstown and was a public servant for the city.
Hmm. So when you first started clerking, what were you doing in the courts? Were you like, just I think when we think entry level, we think automatically mail room because that's what a lot of people see on like soap operas. What were like some of your first job duties?
So I was a general clerk in the criminal traffic division. My job duties were, basically, we are the keeper of records from the cradle to the grave. Whenever uh, charges are filed in the court, we take the charges, we create the cases, and this is what I did on a daily basis. We create the cases, we send them up to the court. They go to court, whether it's finished at arraignment or if it's scheduled for another court date. If it's finished, they'll come down. They may pay their fines. We take the fines and costs, or it might get continued. So the case still stays, with us, but it goes into the judge's pending drawers, and every event on that case gets docketed through our court. So if they're appointed an attorney, if they get an attorney and they file any motions on the case, they file them with us. They get docketed in the files. Any money, any bond money that's on the case, we take it. And whatever the disposition is, we put the disposition in the case and transmit it to whatever outside agency. So, say if it's a traffic case, the information goes to the Bureau of Motor Vehicles, or if it's a criminal case, it gets transmitted to BCI. So that is everything that we do in the Clerk of Courts office, and we're in a unique position because, like I said, on any given day, as the criminal traffic supervisor, which is what I was prior to being the elected clerk, I will talk to the sheriff's department, the Youngstown Police Department, or any other jurisdiction that does charges in the city of Youngstown, prosecutor, defense attorneys, judges within one day. So you really learn the whole legal process in the courts working in the Clerk of Courts office.
So I'm a little tickled because I'm thinking of all of the traffic infractions I had right around the time when you were working there. And I was like, yep, he's probably handled some of my traffic things that I've like had to go to court for when I was like 20 something years ago. So in my 20s, thinking like, yeah, he definitely probably handled that little time when I bumped somebody. And it's crazy because you never think of the people behind the scenes who literally have to keep all of the records of every single thing that you've done. And I'm the kind of person, I look at public records a lot. So I know what it looks like when there's been something entered in on a docket, if something has been continued, if something has been agreed upon and paid off. And to know that there was a whole system behind it, and a couple people who are speaking to attorneys, like you said, defense attorneys and everybody else, making sure that everything is recorded and everything has been handled. It's kind of like in my mind, if you were scroll keepers of like all of the records, because I think a lot about how movies and stuff look. If you were scroll keepers and kept all of these records for all of the different people who have ever come
Yes.
through that particular court.
Yes. And it's
Yeah,
not only
very different.
criminal traffic, we have five divisions within this
Mm.
office. We have a criminal traffic, we have civil, small claims, we have a parking division, um, and then we have our back office. We have an accounting division, we have a human resources division, and we have information technology. So it's a
Ooh.
comprehensive operation that we have.
Absolutely. Never thought about all those people who had to look at all the records of
Yeah.
all the crazy things that I have done and other people have done too. So you did all of this without going into law school,
Yes.
but you also work with lawyers every single day. How do the two jobs or the two professions help each other?
Well, it's a symbiotic relationship. Obviously, our job isn't to interpret the law. Our job is to keep the records. But our job is governed by the Ohio Revised Code and the local rules of court. And every court is different. So when an attorney goes to, say, Boardman Court or Canfield Court, they may have different procedures than what we have. So a lot of times, they're asking us, what our filing fees are for this motion, or what's the procedure for this, because it differs. So it's a symbiotic relationship between the clerks and the defense attorneys.
Never even knew all of that went into that as well. So, what is the difference between your clerking position and the other ones that are here in the city or in the county?
So we're the misdemeanor court. A felony case can start in our court, but you can't be convicted of a felony case in our court. It's either going to get knocked down to a misdemeanor, or it'll get bound over to the grand jury, which that is the bigger court, the county court. So they hear more capital type crimes. You're not going to have anybody get sentenced to 10 years out of our court. The longest they can get sentenced is 6 months for an M1. So the major cases, the felony cases, are heard at the bigger courts. And then, of course, you have the felony courts, which, those are even bigger than the county court cases. And like our small claims division only goes up to 6,000, and our civil department goes up to 15,000. So anything above that would have to go to a county court.
Got it. So, it's almost like, to bring it down to a layman's terms, it's almost like when we see court on television, how their max is so much money. It's kind of that. And anything more than that, you're going to have to go to a different court to handle it. Got it. Never knew that all of that was handled right there where
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. Because, when I got elected, a lot of people would ask, but what, I got a question about my divorce record, or they just think clerk of court, and I deal with everything, property records, and I said no, that's actually done at the county level. But it was all a part of educating the public on what this position actually does.
Right, because if you don't know, then you think that, oh, the clerk of courts, you handle all the court stuff. Well, can
Right.
you go and look up this? It's almost like having a friend who is in some type of medical field and you want to ask them about something random. Hey, well, this hurts. What is that? And they're actually not even dealing with that.
Right.
They're in a whole different branch of everything. I had a friend who went to college for sports medicine, and I promise you, another friend of ours would always ask her every time something hurt, well, what does that mean? Well, what is this? And it's
Mhm.
not really your avenue. So you kind of
Right.
want to stick to the
Stay
rivers
in
and
your
lakes you're used to.
lane. Right.
Right, right.
Yep.
Definitely stay in your own lane. What does a typical day look like in your office?
Typical day, and I could take it from the perspective
Mhm.
as when I was working in the criminal traffic division as a supervisor. You come in, you have a bunch of emails of what went on the night before. So basically, everybody that got arrested, you're gonna see anybody that bonded out of jail. You're gonna see the list or the people that are gonna be on video arraignments, and then you have to go in each person and see what their charges are. Then you're communicating, with the prosecutor's office to make sure, that they have all the charges and everything that they need. And then you'll get police agencies coming in, filing tickets. So, we're putting in tickets, getting ready for the morning arraignments, along with getting the court docket for the day. And, you're answering calls from, attorneys, anyone from the public defendants. You're taking payments. So it's a lot that you're doing.
Yeah, in your opinion, what are some good skills for a clerk to have? Like, there's probably somebody out there now, like, maybe I'd like to do that. What are some basic skills that you think a clerk should possess? Because I know patience has got to be one of them, but what else do you think?
Patience is key. Communication, ability to learn and not get frustrated, really, because we get some people that they get overwhelmed, and you can, because of everything that goes on, the caseload. You're just like, what is going? It's like a whirlwind. What's going on? But once you're able to compartmentalize everything and see how the process works, then it makes more sense to you. But it does take time. It does take time. It's not something that you're going to get in a week. You're not going to get in 2 weeks. It takes a while to be proficient in the job.
Hmm. Do you think that it's a plus to be an attorney before you become a clerk? Or do you see that, you can still be very successful without it? Because I see you crushing it. But do you think that, a law degree would have been a plus? Or do you think that you can actually accomplish this without it?
I think you can actually accomplish it without having a law degree. And like I said, every court is different. So what you learn in law school isn't actually going to be practical to what goes on in the court, because every court is different. Every court has its own local rules of procedure. The judges are different. So you don't necessarily have to have a law degree. More than anything, I would say my master's degree in public administration helped me out because you learn organizational management. I have over 26 employees. So having that background in organizational management, I would say what helps me more than actually having a law degree,
Ooh,
because
I
I
never thought of
have
that.
I have to deal with people. I have to deal with a budget. I have over a $1.8 million budget, and these are classes that I took, in my
Mhm.
master's degree in public administration, along with administrative law. So I had it. It was pretty integrated with the degree that I have, but um, I would say you need more of a management style degree
Mhm.
to be a clerk of court.
Yeah, because when you think about it, it is more managing all of the
It is.
different little cogs of this particular city fit together, and you have to manage them well to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And with the clerk of courts being probably one of the underrated places here in the city, because
Hmm.
I never even knew what you did. But with you being kind of at the center to make sure everything else runs smoothly and everything else has its place and is and is fine in dealing with the attorneys and the police. And I'm quite sure you've had to deal with other offices and our branches of government as well. It's definitely kind of like, that one hidden thing that nobody really thinks about, but it's definitely an
Yeah.
integral part of how the whole
Yeah.
system runs.
Yeah, one of my colleagues at county court, clerk of court, he always says, it's not front news work, but it's front line work.
Oh, that's a
we're not
good one.
be, we're not going to be on the front of the newspaper.
Hmm.
Actually, you don't want us to be, because if we're on the front page of the newspaper, that means we're doing something wrong.
Right.
Typically, it's not front news work, but it is front line work, and it's very important. As I said, we are the statutory and fiscal agent for the court. So essentially, whenever someone pays their fines, there's a breakdown of their fines and costs that go towards different agencies. So we take in the money and we have to distribute that to the state, to the county, towards different agencies. So we act as the fiscal agent for the court.
I had no idea before we had this conversation exactly how many tiny little fine lines you all have to make sure are right in place in order for things to run. I never knew that you had to figure out the budget for the clerk for the whole entire courts that you handle. I never knew that kind of thing. And I just thought when people paid their court costs, it was, I literally couldn't tell you what court costs were for. Couldn't even tell you what they're for, but you know what it's for. What advice would you give someone who's probably just coming out of undergrad and thinking, hey, I might be able to do that?
I would tell them, if they're interested, to pursue it, especially if they're interested in taking it either to get a master's degree or a law degree. I look at what Sarah Brown Clark did in our office, and the organization that you're with, the breaking barrier breakers. Sometimes the barrier breakers are the ones that came before you, and she broke a lot of barriers. And I'm only one of many success stories from this office. There have been many people that have gone on and got master's degrees, law degrees, while working in this office. So it's a great starting point. It's a great starting point. I would say, for everything that I've done, and I talked about how, I started a insurance and financial services firm. I was coached at Youngstown State University, but I still had that base of working here. And I would say, I want to pay it forward and groom the next leaders in the city, just as I had my mentor and my predecessor, Sarah Brown Clark. So if you're interested in this field, if you're interested in management, some people made a career working in the clerk of courts office. So it's they're good jobs, and like you said, it's just people don't really know what the function of the office is, and it would be nice for people to know. And I'm glad that you reached out to me so people can actually see what the clerk of courts does.
Because we think it's something that it's not, and it is. We think it's just this one little tiny thing, but it's actually a whole lot. And you kind of have your hand in almost everything that makes the city run. It's very, very integral to the operation of a successful city. And I don't care who says what, my city is successful, and we have made sure that we stay on top of a lot of stuff. And it's due in part to public servants like yourself who are committed to making sure that they do their jobs well. And I know that you're going to be able to share more with us at the conference in June. Thank you so much, Mr. Hill, for being my guest today. I appreciate it so much. Thank you.